At 75, I found myself making excuses not to attend my grandson's birthday party. "I'm just tired," I told my daughter, but the truth was much deeper. For the first time in my life, I was afraid of being a burden, afraid of not fitting in, afraid my hearing loss would make me seem confused or uninterested. It wasn't until months later that I realized I had been slowly withdrawing from nearly everyone in my life. This pattern of social withdrawal isn't just my story. It's happening to thousands of seniors across the country, often starting so subtly that families miss the warning signs until their once vibrant parent or grandparent has retreated into isolation. What's most concerning? This withdrawal isn't just about loneliness. Research now shows it can actually shorten your life by up to 7 years, comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. In this video, I'm going to reveal 7 hidden reasons why many people in their 70s begin distancing themselves from friends, family, and social activities they once enjoyed. These aren't just surface-level excuses like feeling tired or busy. They're profound psychological and physical changes that can transform even the most social person into someone who gradually pulls away from life's most meaningful connections. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what's happening beneath the surface when a senior starts declining invitations, reducing phone calls, or showing less interest in activities they once loved. More importantly, you'll learn what can be done to reconnect and rebuild these essential relationships before it's too late. Stay with me until the end, because the 7th reason seniors withdraw socially is rarely discussed, but may be the most important of all. It's a psychological shift that happens to nearly 40% of adults over 70, yet most family members misinterpret it completely, often making the situation worse with their well-intentioned responses. Understanding this hidden factor could be the key to helping someone you love reconnect with life when they've started pulling away. One of the most powerful reasons people in their 70s begin withdrawing socially stems from something they rarely want to admit: physical limitations that make social activities embarrassing, difficult, or even painful. For me, it started with my knees. Walking through the mall with my friends had always been our Saturday ritual for over 20 years. We'd shop, have lunch, catch up on life. But at 73, I started noticing that keeping up with their pace became increasingly difficult. My knees would throb after just 30 minutes. I'd find myself searching for benches while they continued browsing or making excuses to sit at the cafe while they explored another store. Rather than admit I couldn't keep up, I gradually started declining these outings altogether. "I'm just not in a shopping mood," I'd say, or "I have other plans that day." The truth was far more difficult to admit. I was physically unable to participate in a way I once had, and the thought of holding everyone back or becoming the slow one felt humiliating. Consider Thomas, a 76-year-old former construction worker. For decades, he hosted Sunday dinners for his extended family, standing proudly at the grill, serving everyone with flair. But after arthritis settled into his hands, he could no longer grip utensils confidently. The thought of dropping food or needing help to serve meals became so anxiety-provoking that he gradually stopped hosting altogether. His family assumed he was simply tired of the tradition, never realizing the deep shame he felt over his changing abilities. What many families don't understand is that acknowledging these limitations feels like announcing your own decline. It's not just about admitting you need help. It's about facing the reality that your body is failing you piece by piece. Many seniors would rather withdraw completely than face this painful truth in front of others. The solution isn't pushing seniors to get out more. It's creating modified social opportunities that accommodate these changes without drawing attention to them. Shorter gatherings, seated activities, or smaller groups can make all the difference between isolation and connection. The second reason many people begin withdrawing in their 70s is sensory loss, particularly hearing difficulties, which transforms social gatherings from pleasurable experiences into frustrating ordeals. When Eleanor, 79, stopped attending her weekly bridge club after 15 years, her friends were puzzled and hurt. What they didn't realize was that Eleanor's hearing had deteriorated to the point where she could only catch about 60% of the conversation. In noisy restaurants or rooms with multiple conversations, that dropped to about 30%. I found myself nodding and smiling, pretending I could follow along, she told me. But inside, I felt increasingly anxious. What if they asked me a direct question? What if I responded inappropriately because I misheard? Eventually, the stress of faking my way through these gatherings became overwhelming. This isn't just about missing words, it's about missing meaning, missing jokes, missing the emotional connection that comes from truly participating in conversation. Many seniors find themselves laughing when others laugh, nodding when others nod, all while feeling increasingly disconnected from what's actually happening around them. What makes this particularly isolating is that hearing loss comes with stigma. Many seniors resist getting hearing aids, viewing them as symbols of old age or disability. Instead, they gradually withdraw from social situations where their impairment might be exposed. Family dinners, community events, even phone calls become sources of anxiety rather than connection. I experienced this myself when my granddaughter called to tell me about her college acceptance. I could hear her excitement, but missed most of the details about her scholarship. Rather than repeatedly asking what, or can you repeat that, I simply responded with generic congratulations. Later, when other family members referenced details I had missed, I felt like an outsider in my own family's joy. The tragic irony is that this withdrawal often happens just when social connection becomes most crucial for mental and physical health. The third reason many seniors begin distancing themselves socially might surprise you: a profound loss of confidence that affects how they see themselves in the world. Margaret, 74, was once known for her sharp wit and engaging stories at every family gathering. But after retiring from her 40-year teaching career, something changed. I suddenly felt like I had nothing valuable to contribute, she explained. My work had been my identity. Without it, what did I have to offer in conversation? Who would care about my opinions anymore? This crisis of relevance isn't just about missing work. It's about questioning your value in a society that often equates worth with productivity. After decades of being needed, respected, and sought after for their expertise, many seniors suddenly find themselves feeling invisible, overlooked, or even burdensome. I felt this shift myself after retiring. At professional gatherings, I had always been someone people sought out for advice. My opinions carried weight. My stories earned attention. But at 72, I noticed people at social events would politely listen for a moment before their eyes would drift, looking for someone else to engage with. The subtle message was clear. My thoughts were no longer as valuable as they once were. Rather than face this painful shift in status, many seniors simply stop putting themselves in situations where they feel irrelevant. They decline dinner invitations, avoid community events, and gradually shrink their social circles to include only those who still make them feel valued. What families often misinterpret as disinterest or fatigue is actually a protective response to preserve whatever sense of dignity and self-worth remains. The senior who seems antisocial may actually be someone desperately trying to avoid situations where they feel invisible or undervalued. The solution isn't simply more invitations, it's creating opportunities where seniors can meaningfully contribute, share their wisdom, and feel genuinely valued for who they are now, not just who they once were. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 3 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. The fourth reason many people begin withdrawing socially in their 70s is rarely discussed openly: financial anxiety and the shame of having limited resources in retirement. Robert, 77, gradually stopped joining his friends for their monthly dinner outings. When asked why, he would make vague excuses about being tired or having other commitments. The truth, which he shared with me privately, was much more difficult. On my fixed income, I simply can't afford $75 dinners anymore. But I'm too embarrassed to suggest cheaper alternatives or admit that money has become tight. This financial anxiety extends far beyond restaurant meals. Many seniors face the daily stress of stretching limited retirement funds across potentially decades of life. What younger people might view as a simple invitation, a weekend trip, a concert, even a coffee date, can trigger calculations and worry for someone living on a fixed income. I experienced this myself when my granddaughter invited me to her destination wedding. While I was overjoyed for her, the $2,000 in travel expenses represented nearly 3 months of my discretionary spending. I couldn't bear to tell her I couldn't afford it, nor could I comfortably spend that amount. Instead, I manufactured a health concern that prevented me from traveling, solving the immediate problem but creating distance in our relationship. What makes this particularly isolating is the shame attached to financial limitations. Many of today's seniors grew up in generations where financial success was deeply tied to personal worth and where discussing money problems was taboo. Rather than admit they can't afford to participate, they simply withdraw from activities altogether. Even seniors who appear financially comfortable may be operating from a place of deep anxiety about future expenses. With healthcare costs looming and the uncertainty of how many years their savings must last, many choose to conserve resources by reducing social engagements that have any cost attached. For families trying to maintain connection, understanding this hidden concern is crucial. Creating no-cost or low-cost ways to stay engaged can make all the difference between inclusion and isolation. The fifth reason many people in their 70s begin withdrawing socially is the increasing challenge of transportation and mobility, a practical barrier that gradually shrinks their world to the distance they can comfortably travel. Consider James, a 78-year-old who had been the life of every neighborhood gathering for decades. When he stopped attending the weekly community potluck, his neighbors assumed he had lost interest. The reality was far simpler. After giving up driving at night due to declining eyesight, he had no way to get to these evening events. Too proud to ask for rides and unwilling to burden others, he simply stayed home instead. This transportation barrier affects seniors in both urban and rural areas, though in different ways. In cities, navigating public transportation becomes increasingly challenging with age. Climbing bus stairs, standing during crowded rides, or walking to and from transit stops can become physically impossible. In rural areas, giving up driving often means complete dependence on others for any social engagement beyond walking distance. I faced this reality myself when I realized I could no longer safely drive on highways. Suddenly, visiting friends who lived in neighboring towns became complicated. Attending my favorite cultural events in the city required elaborate planning. The spontaneous social life I had enjoyed for decades abruptly contracted to my immediate neighborhood. What many families don't realize is how quickly this mobility limitation can lead to complete social isolation. A senior who can't independently travel becomes entirely dependent on others' schedules, others' willingness to provide transportation, and others' decisions about what events are worth attending. Rather than repeatedly ask for rides or express disappointment when no transportation is offered, many seniors simply stop mentioning events they'd like to attend. They begin declining invitations to places beyond their transportation reach. Eventually, those invitations stop coming altogether. For every senior who admits they need help with transportation, there are many more who silently limit their social engagement rather than face the loss of independence that asking for help represents. The sixth reason people often withdraw socially in their 70s is both heartbreaking and inevitable: the accelerating loss of lifelong friends to death, illness, or cognitive decline. By the time we reach our 70s, the social circles we've built over decades begin to shrink dramatically. Close friends die. Neighbors move to assisted living facilities. Colleagues develop dementia. Each loss isn't just emotionally painful, it fundamentally changes the social landscape that once provided joy, support, and a sense of belonging. Martha, 81, expressed this poignantly: "After my friend Susan died last year, I stopped going to our community center completely. We had always gone together for 12 years. Every chair, every activity there reminded me of her absence. And frankly, I didn't have the energy to build new friendships from scratch at my age." This reluctance isn't just about grief. Building and maintaining friendships requires emotional energy, something that may be in shorter supply in our later years. After losing several close friends, many seniors consciously or unconsciously decide it's simply too painful to invest in new relationships that might also end in loss. I experienced this after my best friend of 45 years died unexpectedly. We had spoken on the phone every morning for decades. Suddenly, my days had a gaping hole no one else could fill. When well-meaning family suggested I make new friends at the senior center, they didn't understand that replacing a 45-year relationship isn't like finding a new tennis partner. The depth, history, and comfort of that connection was irreplaceable. What makes this particularly isolating is that each friendship loss often comes with the loss of associated activities and routines. The friend you played cards with weekly, the neighbor you gardened with, the couple you traveled with, when they're gone, the activities connected to them often disappear as well. For many seniors, reaching a certain threshold of friend loss triggers a kind of social surrender. The effort of rebuilding a social circle from scratch feels overwhelming compared to the simpler path of gradual withdrawal. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 6 below to let me know you're here. If you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's move on to our final point. The seventh and perhaps most profound reason many people begin withdrawing socially in their 70s is rarely discussed: a fundamental psychological shift in how they process and value social interaction, often misinterpreted by family members as depression or disinterest. Psychologists call this shift socio-emotional selectivity, a natural change in priorities that often accompanies the awareness that time is growing shorter. As we age, particularly past 70, many of us become increasingly selective about how and with whom we spend our remaining time. Dr. Charlotte Ferguson, a geriatric psychologist, explains, it's not that seniors don't want social connection, it's that they want meaningful connection. Small talk, superficial gatherings, and obligatory events often feel increasingly pointless when viewed through the lens of limited time remaining. I noticed this shift in myself shortly after my 75th birthday. Suddenly, the neighborhood cocktail parties I had always dutifully attended felt empty and draining. Conversations about home renovations, vacation plans, or local gossip that had once been pleasantly engaging now seemed almost painfully trivial. Instead, I found myself craving deeper conversations with fewer people, discussions about life's meaning, family histories, or philosophical questions. What family members often misinterpret as withdrawal might actually be a reprioritization. The senior who skips the large family reunion but invites one grandchild for an afternoon visit isn't necessarily becoming antisocial. They're becoming selectively social, prioritizing depth over breadth. William, 82, described it this way: I used to fill my calendar with activities to stay busy. Now, I ask myself before accepting any invitation, will this matter to me in my final years? Will I remember this fondly? If the answer is no, I simply don't go, regardless of what others might think. This psychological shift explains why many well-intentioned efforts by families to get mom out more by planning large, stimulating social gatherings often fail or even backfire. The senior isn't looking for more social interaction. They're looking for more meaningful social interaction. For families seeking to maintain connection, understanding this shift is crucial. Rather than focusing on the quantity of social engagement, focus on its quality and meaning. A quiet conversation looking through old photos might provide more genuine connection than an elaborate party. Now that we've explored these 7 hidden reasons why many people in their 70s begin distancing themselves socially, take a moment to reflect on someone in your life who may be experiencing this withdrawal. Have you noticed changes in their social patterns? Perhaps declining invitations, making excuses to avoid gatherings, or showing less enthusiasm for activities they once enjoyed. Understanding these hidden factors, from physical limitations and sensory loss to confidence issues, financial anxiety, mobility challenges, friend loss, and psychological shifts in priorities, gives us a new lens through which to view these changes. What might look like disinterest, stubbornness, or even depression from the outside often has much deeper, more complex roots. The most important thing to recognize is that social withdrawal in seniors is rarely a simple choice or personality change. It's usually a response to real challenges, limitations, and psychological shifts that come with aging. Approaching these changes with empathy rather than frustration can make all the difference in maintaining meaningful connection. For seniors experiencing this withdrawal themselves, recognizing these patterns can be the first step toward finding new ways to stay connected that honor your changing needs and limitations. There's no need to force yourself into social situations that have become physically uncomfortable, emotionally draining, or simply less meaningful. Instead, focus on cultivating the connections that still bring you joy, purpose, and comfort. For families trying to support aging loved ones, this understanding calls for a shift in approach. Rather than simply encouraging more social activity, consider how to address the underlying barriers. For physical limitations, create shorter, more comfortable gathering opportunities. For sensory challenges, choose quiet restaurants, ensure good lighting, and check in privately about hearing needs. For confidence issues, actively seek your loved one's advice, stories, and wisdom, showing them their continued value. For financial concerns, suggest no-cost alternatives or explicitly clarify when you're treating them to an outing. For transportation barriers, build ride-sharing into event planning rather than waiting for them to ask. For friend loss, acknowledge the irreplaceable nature of these relationships while gently supporting new connections. For psychological shifts in priorities, respect their selectivity while ensuring the interactions they do want remain available. The goal isn't to force seniors back into their previous social patterns, but to help them maintain the connections that matter most in ways that accommodate their changing needs and priorities. Remember that social connection in our later years isn't just about avoiding loneliness, it's a critical health factor. Research has consistently shown that meaningful social engagement is associated with better cognitive function, slower decline, reduced depression, and even longer life. Finding ways to maintain these connections, even as the nature of social interaction changes, may be one of the most important health interventions we can make. Thank you for joining me today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you know someone who might be withdrawing socially or a family trying to understand changes in their aging loved one, please share this video with them. The insights we've discussed today could help rebuild bridges of understanding and connection when they're needed most. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video, where we'll explore the 5 most effective ways to rebuild social connection after 70, even when traditional gatherings no longer work.